But Yah righteousness, Jerusalem, and the Holy See. Yah bless and peace, everyone, to our national and international audience. I hope everybody is in as greatest health possible. This is August the 3rd, 2022. And we've, they've put a strike against us. I mean, we've got a strike against us on the YouTube stream. So those of you who tune in immediately there at the beginning of this session for August 2022, and you're on Pal Talk, we're still on Pal Talk. They struck us for a week, so we're not able to stream today. We'll be able to stream next Sabbath when Yada replays this. It'll be able to go on the stream. You know why they have put a strike against us for a week, because of what I was referring to. They tell us that I'm not a medical expert. So when I say that, you know what it's in reference to. But again, we have to get the truth out. As Yada said earlier, they say this country's supposed to be about free speech. You see, I'm laughing, right? But they're so afraid now of the dissemination and information that different ones of us, of the people who have come into more and more knowledge of what's going on, and the attack on the people of the earth. They want to restrict people from saying certain things, in regards to the medical industrial complex. But again, we've talked about it. I'm sure others, as I know, many of you out there across the earth have information about the attack. And again, this hasn't just begun. Okay, as I've said in the past, they've been attacking mankind over the years through their medical industrial complex. Legal drugs, illegal drugs, so on and so forth. I got an article that I'm going to read later that we've talked about in the past, and millions and millions and possibly billions of people know what was done here 50 to 70 years ago. Matter of fact, since like 1939, so about anywhere from 50 to 80 years ago, what they did, but I'll get to that. Last session too, I made a mistake in regards to, I said herring, because I was reading this article. I was thinking bristling, but I said herring. Herring is a good fish. It's like sardine. It's a good fish. Got scales, got fins. But it's the bristling that doesn't have scales, right? But it's classified as a sardine. Good brother Raphael, he called. He's a fisherman. He fishes out in the Atlantic Ocean. I've talked to him over the years at different times, just to show you how Yah works. And man, I mean, Yah is great. Show you how he works. I was thinking about calling the brother, and he called. I had him call. When I was thinking about it in my head, I hit him with the spirit, and he called. We talked, and I said, bruh, I said, man, Yah is great. When he called, I said, because I was thinking about calling you. I said, because I know you fish out in that Atlantic, and it came out about this tuna because you know, it was brought to me about tuna. You know, some tuna has some scales, you know, around its head and its underbelly. Okay, so I'm gonna read this to you. You know, Yada brought this up and ran this off, right? It says, do all tuna fish have scales and fins, right? Question. And it says all tuna fish have scales and fins. Fins help the tuna breathe and swim, while scales protect them against predators. Since tuna fish have both fins and scales, they are considered kosher or permissible to eat in Jewish tradition. That's the Edomites, the Jews. In this article, I'll cover over 5 variations of tuna and look into their scales in detail. I'll also discuss whether each tuna type is certified kosher too. Right? Do tuna have scales? Question. Scales on tuna fish aren't as apparent as some other fish types, such as tilapia, and they got pomfret, P-O-M-F-R-E-T. I guess that's, I'm pronouncing it correct. I'm not hip to that fish at all. Pomfret. So does tuna even have scales? That's a question. So does tuna even have scales? If so, why can't you see them? Question, right? Tuna fish have scales which are known as scuts, S-C-U-T-E-S. These scales are small and few. You hear that? Small and few. They're flat and hard, making them invisible to the naked eye. But all variations of tuna have scales that can be easily perceived through a microscope. Now it says, speaking of tuna variations, let's briefly look at a few of them and the type of scales they possess. Now, bluefin tuna, which I've never seen a tuna fish up close live. You know what I'm saying? In person, okay? But this bluefin tuna, which is supposed to be the top of the line tuna, I saw here a few years ago, it's somewhat like an endangered species because they fish it big time over around Japan in the waters off Japan, and it's very, very expensive. Now, my old dentist, you know, a good guy as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you know, since I knew him, he was a good guy. We used to talk a lot. Dr. Albacore, and he mentioned to me about bluefin tuna. And when he did that, you know, I'm looking at all tuna basically it's the same, no scales, right? And so I said to him, I said, Doc, I said, you know, I've never had bluefin, I've never seen it, but tuna doesn't have scales, and we're not supposed to eat anything out of the waters that does not have fins and scales. And Doc evidently didn't know about whether the tuna fish had scales or not. Okay, because I know if he had known, he would have told me. So he wasn't knowledgeable. He was just coming from the aspect of how good to him that bluefin tuna is, right? And he also mentioned how it's very expensive. Now, the bluefin tuna is one of the highest demand tuna variations out there. It's trendy in Far East Asian countries in seafood dishes like sashimi and sushi. Okay? They have scales all over their bodies with a blackish blue-black, bright silver flanks, and a yellowish stomach area. Their fins are, you guessed it, bright blue. Okay? Now that's the bluefin tuna. And he's saying, and I was told this by, you know, who brought this to me, that they had seen on the internet, you know, on this, like, I guess a documentary about this Korean fisherman scaling the bluefin tuna, and I was told that when they looked at it, they saw that the bluefin tuna had scales all over his body, you know, dark blue scales. okay, and blue fins with the dark blue scales. Now I just read to you where it says they have scales all over their body, okay? So that would make the bluefin tuna fish fine to eat because it's got fins and scales all over its body. Now I paramount the scales all over its body because as I keep going, the albacore tuna, okay, albacore tuna is also commonly known as longfin tuna and has a streamlined dark colored body covered in tiny scales. It's characterized by its mouth, big mouth, and large eyes. Now they say it's got tiny scales all over its body. Matter of fact, and it doesn't even say all over it, but it just says it's covered in tiny scales. So I would think that's all over its body. Now that's the albacore tuna, right? And they say it's covered by tiny scales over its body, right? And if that's the case, that's possibly okay too, because it's got scales all, the way it's, indicated here, like all over its body. That's the albacore tuna, right? Now, the ahi tuna is very similar to the yellowfin tuna. They have streamlined bodies with large eyes. There are only a few scales behind the corselet, though a band of large scales circles its head. So now that's the ahi tuna, right? It's only got scales like it circles its head, and as they say, behind the corselet, corselet. So it doesn't have scales all over its body. So now that leaves it vulnerable to invaders or parasites. Okay. Now the yellowfin tuna is barely distinguishable from the ahi, and only the pros know the signs to look for to tell these two apart. They even have similar scale patterns and sizes. So the yellowfin tuna, again, doesn't have scales over most of its body. It's got scales possibly behind the corselet and then around its head. That's it. But the rest of its body is unprotected by scales, and it will allow it to be attacked by invaders or parasites. Okay, that's the yellowfin tuna and the ahi tuna. Very, very simple. As they say, only pros can tell these two apart. Then you've got the skipjack tuna, a medium-sized streamlined fish from the tuna family. The skipjack has many names like catcalang or katsua, balea, mushmouth, oceanic bonito, vectorfish, and striped luna. It's also called light tuna when canned. It has thick scales along its lateral line and corselet, but nowhere else on its body. So now it's exposed. Most of its body is exposed to invaders or parasites. So these last three are ahi tuna, yellowfin tuna, and skipjack tuna, okay, don't have scales over most of its body. Now, as this person had brought to me, people I was talking to, not Raphael, but they was like, and this one person was like, in the book, it doesn't say how many scales, does the fish have to be covered in scales totally. It just says fins and scales. Okay, but now, Yah gives us the ability to discern. Now, again, the scales, from what, I've read, protects the fish from outside invaders or parasites. So now these last three tunas, ahi tuna, yellowfin tuna, and this skipjack, they only have scales around his head, and like it says corselet. I think that's like the underbelly. It's got some scales, but the rest of its body is exposed. So therefore, parasites can attack it, get into it, and that's not good, right? Now the albacore tuna, as it says, it's got tiny scales and the body is covered. So that would mean that the albacore tuna has got little tiny scales all over its body. Okay? And the bluefin tuna's got big scales, blue, all over its body. So therefore, the bluefin tuna and the albacore tuna would be okay to eat. right? Because they're not exposed to the extent where parasites can enter into their body, all right? But now, again, you know, you got to be knowledgeable, right? You just can't go out here and get some tuna fish and say it's okay, because you don't know just which one it is, right? Now, I would think the bluefin tuna is definitely going to be per se labeled, because again, it like I said, I saw a few years ago, I don't know, about 3-4 years ago, about 4 years ago, something like that, just in a little bit piece where they were talking about how the bluefin tuna is almost like an endangered species. They're almost fishing it out, because again, it's very, very expensive. Okay, and I've seen where they say it open in Japan. Like I say, they eat a lot of that bluefin tuna, and that's why now they've kind of got be careful that they don't fish it out, right, out of existence. So now it's good, it's okay, because it's got big scales, blue scales all over its body, so it's not being invaded by parasites, right? And the albacore tuna has got little scales all over its body. It's covered, as it says here, all over its body with scales, so it would be okay. But these other three, I wouldn't fool with them. Now, Brother Raphael, he called, we was talking, and he also told me, because these other people had mentioned to me how I said many years ago about the flounder. Now, they said I said it was a bottom feeder, which I have no doubt I said that, but I don't remember, actually, exactly what I said about the flounder. I said, I'm pretty sure I said I didn't need it, we didn't need it here. But it does have scales, because brother told me, Raphael, he said, flounder is a good fish. It's got scales on both sides. It's just a hideous looking fish. You know what I mean? Because it's a bottom feeder. It's on the bottom of the ocean line. That's why one side of the flounder is very light colored, and the top part that's exposed to the sun, the rays of the sun, is real dark. And I thought for sure that when I talked about the flounder years ago, I mentioned how this sister that I know, she many years ago, this is back in like around 90, 89, 90, and I was over her house, and she was like, you want to eat dinner? And I said, what you got? She says, I got some fish. I said, what kind of fish? She's like, flounder. And I was like, I don't know about flounder. So I got up and I went to the kitchen, and she was taking it, unwrapping it. And I said, does that have scales? And she said, yeah. And she took her hand and she, pulled back, and I could see little small scales. Like they say, this albacore tuna has little small scales in that. And the flounder has little small scales. And she pulled them up. I'm like, oh, okay. But it looks so hideous, right? I declined. I'm like, no, that's all right. You know what I mean? Because I remember she was saying, this got scales. I said, yeah, but, I'll pass, because it just looks so, you know what I mean? It just looks funny. And if I remember correctly, they say the flounder, because it's always laying on the bottom of the ocean floor, like the eye on the back side, the bottom side, moves around, and two eyes is like on the top of it in the dark part of the fish that's exposed to the sun. But the brother Raphael, he told me, he said flounder's a good fish. He said it's okay. But when I mentioned to him about the tuna, right, he said I wouldn't fool with tuna. Now, I would think that evidently he's seen some tuna live, right? Cut into him, possibly. He didn't say this to me, but I would think he's seen it live, and when you open it up, you could possibly see, because it's exposed to parasites. You might be able to actually see them in the tuna fish when you open them up. The ones that our whole body is not covered with scales to protect it. So, when you get this tuna out, you see what I'm saying? How you going to know which one you're getting? Are you going to be getting the skipjack, the yellowfin, or the albacore? You understand? Which has very slight scale, coverage of scales. Basically, the body is exposed to parasites, right? It's only the not the albacore, the ahi, excuse me, the ahi, the yellowfin, and the skipjack tuna. Those are the ones that has very little scale coverage, right? So they're, you know, vulnerable to parasite, you know, invasion. Whereas the albacore and the bluefin, their bodies are covered by scales, so you know they would be all right to eat. But again, if you're getting this out, or if you're getting it already pre-packaged or in a can, how can you be sure just one you're getting? Because again, you can't trust these, you know, these industries today. You know what I'm saying? Just like I talked about the sardines years ago, right? And I called some companies about the sardines. They're gonna tell me, you understand, bristling is okay, and you know, bristlings don't have scales, right? So, as I told these people who brought this to me, well, I'm not gonna be running out getting any tuna, okay? Now, I told them I'll talk about it on the session, as well as the flounder, because they had found out flounder had scales. They said I said many years ago that flounder didn't have scales. Like I said, I don't remember. Yeah, I know it's somewhere on the website. So if I said that, I was wrong. Okay, for all of you out there, the flounder is an okay fish. And like I said, Brother Raphael, he told me it's cool, because he, like I said, he fishes in that Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so you know, he said the flounder is cool. And like I said, he called me to tell me about the herring, but I had already saw my mistake about that on the last session. I meant to say bristling, and I said herring. Herring's a good fish, you know, it's okay. All right, so just wanted to clear that up about tuna, because as I've said in the past, you know, I read this article where they said they found rat hairs in tuna. Now, when I read that article, it talked about that on one of the sessions years ago. It didn't indicate, you know, what kind of tuna that was that they found the rat hairs in. So I would take it, you possibly understand that it's one of these tuna fish that had very little scale coverage. You know, that's just my man. I don't know for sure, but I'm just thinking that's probably how it was. But again, if you know, anything out of the waters that have scales and fins, and again, I would say full coverage, body coverage of scales that protects that fish from being invaded by parasites. If it has, you know, full body coverage of scales and fins, it's okay. Simple as that, right? Because again, like I said, it was brought out to me by this person. Well, it doesn't say in the book that the fish has to have full body coverage and scales. Well, that's true. But again, Yah says we're supposed to discern between the clean and the unclean, Leviticus 20:25. So, you know, we're supposed to use sound judgment. And so once you see that the scales protect that fish from invasion of parasites, well, if it only has partial scale coverage, then it's going to be vulnerable to parasite invasion. If it's got full scale body scale coverage, then it's protected. It's like an armor, right? Protected against parasite invasion. So I would go with the full body scale coverage and fins, then it's okay. But like I said, you get this tuna out or in cans, you understand what I mean? How you know what you're getting? So my position is I'm gonna leave it alone. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone until, you know, like I said, we get to the land, or if somebody says, you know, I can actually see it, this is bluefin tuna or albacore tuna, then I might consider it. Definitely on the bluefin tuna. All right, but and albacore too. But you know, I'm not gonna just eat tuna because it's tuna. You understand what I'm saying? And want to be presumptuous in thinking that it's one of the two tunas that's okay, that's got full body coverage and scales, rather than these other three, you know, the skipjack, the yellowfin, or the ahi that doesn't have full body coverage at all, and are likely to be invaded by parasites. Okay, but every one of you out there, you know, do your homework and you know, look well to your way, right? So again, flounder's okay. Okay, I remember we were talking about it the other week. You know, y'all said, I still don't want no fun. Because she knows how it looks. She said, I still don't want no fun. I said, yeah, you know. But, you know, because the people who brought this to me, they were coming from the standpoint of, over the years, just taking what I had said, and if I said that, then I was wrong in regards to flounder not having scales, right? It's still a bottom feeder, right? But it does have scales on both sides, okay? But they said they had passed up flounder many times, and it's an inexpensive fish. It's very inexpensive, and they could have got that, spent less, and had a decent meal, like evidently, you know what I mean? So they passed it up, but now they're aware of it. And as I said, they brought it to me as they were supposed to. You follow what I'm saying? And again, you know, the flounder is okay. And like I said, Brother Raphael, he told me that, you know, flounder is cool too. But again, like I said, understand that I made an honest mistake about the herring, and herring is good. The bristling is not good. Now, I've talked about that in the past. You know, because again, y'all just keep revealing things all the time, right? You know, also, YHWH Hadassah brought to me about the sacrifices of Yah, right? Again, we've talked about the sacrifices on the altar. You know, the altar of incense is only incense goes on that altar. Every day, incense is burned, right? And then, you know, once a year, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest, you know, puts incense on, but he has to anoint that altar again on the horns of it with blood of the sin offering, right? But the only incense that's burned, and then they take up that half a shekel from everybody 20 years old and upward on the Day of Atonement, right? When all, you know, the people who partake in that and who submit to the will of Yah, again with the half a shekel, right? And no work of any kind is done on the Day of Atonement, right? And you stay in at rest. It's like a Sabbath day, but you afflict your soul. You don't eat, and possibly, you know, you don't drink anything either. That, you know, if you want to afflict your soul that way. As I said in the past about that, right? You know, we know we're not supposed to eat, right? Some people drink water. I've drank water in the past on the Day of Atonement. Here, the last Day of Atonement, I didn't eat or drink, right? Now, again, I always point out about Daniel in chapter 10 of the book of Daniel, right? We know he afflicted his soul, and he says he ate no pleasant bread during those 3 weeks when he afflicted his soul. So that means he ate bread, but it wasn't pleasant to him. And again, if you ate bread for 3 weeks, I'm certain that he drank some water. Again, you understand, that's basically how they call the prison menu, you understand, or diet, you know, or man's the prison menu. When they put somebody in the hole, they put them on bread and water, right? And more likely than not, that's what Daniel was on for those 3 weeks in chapter 10. Daniel, he just ate bread, no pleasant bread, but he ate bread and he drank water. Because it's hard for me to think. He ate some bread doing, you know, possibly every day for three weeks. He didn't drink any water. Okay? So, yes, I'm certain he drank water. But he's still saying he afflicted his soul. I mean, he's telling us he ate, but he still afflicted his soul. Because, again, he didn't even wash for 3 full weeks. So, you know, the reason why I'm saying it this way is like, it all depends on how you're looking at afflicting your soul. I mean, because again, Daniel withheld from himself, right, food that he, without a doubt, possibly desired, that was pleasant to him. He refused to eat that, even though in his mind he could, because he was afflicting his soul. So he just ate bread, drank water. And like I said, it doesn't say he drank water, but I'm certain he did, doing for three weeks. He just didn't eat bread, didn't drink any water. You know what I mean? But he said he afflicted his soul. Okay? So, but the Day of Atonement, one afflicts their soul, right? You don't eat anything. That's how we've been doing. And again, you know, it had been brought to me, some people like, well, I don't eat or drink. Okay, no problem, right? Like I said, this last Day of Atonement last year, I didn't eat or drink anything for the whole Day of Atonement. So, because again, some people have called and said, Yoda, who had little children, like 2 months old or 5 months old or a year old, and they was like, I didn't give the child anything, and they was all right. You know what I'm saying? They like, it wasn't no problem. Child wasn't crying, wasn't hollering, wasn't screaming. It went through the whole day, didn't drink anything, didn't eat anything. There wasn't no problem. Well, that's from Yah. Yah is the spirit of all living. There's nothing too hard for Yah. Nothing. Okay? There are sacrifices, right? When people, and it's funny because YHWH Yisrael, when they brought this to me here the other week, and we were talking about it, and I said, because we've been doing this for the years, right? And I said, you just now seeing this. This is just now jumping out to you, because again, you know what I mean, in the sense that, we've read it. All of us have read it, saw it. But you know how you can read something, I don't, for however long, for years, and then one day you read it, and it just really jumps out at you, and it's so profound, right? Because again, we know that people have come at us at different times through the years. I know they have with me, and like, well, there's no priesthood, there's no temple, so how do you make sacrifices to Yah, right? Well, we've always said, Hosea 14 verse 2, we offer up the calves of our lips, and again, that's in harmony with Solomon's supplication, right? So-called 1 Kings chapter 8, really, book of the governors, right? First book of the governors, chapter 8, and 2 Chronicles chapter 6, right? Where Solomon, in his supplication, after the first temple was completed, and in his supplication, when you read it, he put forth, Yah, there is no man that sins not, or woman, right? So therefore, if we sin against thee, and you drive us out of the land into the nations of the earth, at some point, if we bethink ourselves, right, and turn back to this city, this house that I have built for thy name, and humble ourselves and confess our sins and iniquities, and ask for forgiveness, then forgive. Here in heaven and forgive. You follow me? That's in his supplication. I'm sure if not all of you read it, if you haven't, then go there and read it in both places. Like I said in the past, it's more in Yah's acceptance in 2 Chronicles chapter 7 than it is in First Governors, or so-called 1 Kings chapter 9, right? Because in chapter 7, 2 Chronicles, that's where it says that the fire came down when Solomon, finished his supplication and stood up, because all the nation was out before him. They wasn't in the temple because they can't go in the temple. They was before the temple, right? And they were out there, and they were kneeling with their heads bowed. Solomon had the scaffold, 3 cubits square built. He was kneeling on the scaffold with his hands and arms up toward heaven like this, with his head bowed, right? And then when he got through, he stood up, and they stood up, and the fire, I used to say light, but it was YHWH Yisrael that said, no, that's actually fire. You know what I mean? And I, when they explained it to me, because YHWH, he's into that engineering and whatnot, he's like, no, it's fire, because lightning has a different, component, somewhat. This is actual fire. And I agree. They pointed out, y'all let me, I agree. So actual fire came down, right, and hit the sacrifice and sucked it up, just like what you see with Elia, right, in so-called 1 Kings chapter 8:10, when he implored Yah, you understand, when the people had gone off worshiping Baal, right, the ancient Jesus, you follow what I'm saying? That's, And Elia said in First Governors chapter 18, or so-called First Kings, right? How long are you going to halt between these two different, it says opinions, but it's not even opinions, right? That's, lost in translation. It's really how long you going to halt between these two different ideologies, right? If Baal is the Most High servant, right? That's what Elia said to the people. But if Yah is the Most High, serve him. But stop saying, and this is what, again, the Illuminists took out of the book, what Elia said to the people. But stop saying that you're serving Yah, but Baal is his son. You see what I'm saying? That's why I said Baal is the, the Jesus of yesterday. Because when, again, the Illuminists created the New Testament and this mythology about Jesus supposed to be the Son of God, that's the same, predicated on the same, ideology, right? Jesus is the Son of God, Baal was the Son of God, but that's a bunch of nonsense, okay? Bunch of nonsense. And this is what Elia said in chapter 18, so-called First Kings, first book of the Covenants, right? How long you gonna halt between these two different ideologies? If Yah is the Most High servant, Baal is the Most High servant, but stop saying you serving Yah and Baal is his son. That's what they took out of the book, okay? And all these things, again, Yah has revealed over the years, a piece here, a piece there, just like it says in Yeshua chapter 28, right? Line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. That's how everybody gets it. But again, when you talking about offerings, and it was a brother to show you how Yah works. They had brought this to me here the other week. We had talked about it. And then a brother here, just here the other day, he brought to me about sacrifice. He said, different people be bringing him about sacrifices. How can we do sacrifices, right, in captivity, right? So again, as I said earlier, and have said in the past at different times, we talk about offering up the calves of our lips. We turn toward Jerusalem. We find out what direction it's in, and we humble ourselves, and we pray, and we call upon the name of Yah, and we lift up our prayers and supplications to Yah, and pray our prayers are acceptable in His sight, more acceptable than the fat of rams, lambs, of oxen, and had horns and hooves upon His altar, right? But also, right, we have offerings that we're, Yah accepts. For instance, here in chapter 4, Psalms, right, verse 5, offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in Yah. See, so when we, start to find out about Yah, because we, those of you out there who have sought Yah, right? Again, when I say that, Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 6, Yah is upset with those who have not inquired or sought Him. And again, since the seal has been off the book since 1896, right? Again, 1896 is when the seal came off, because it was 604, the first vision Daniel got, before Nebuchadnezzar's image, the dream and the vision of Nebuchadnezzar's image was given to Daniel. The first vision he got was 1136 to 1210 Daniel. For those of you who might not heard me say this in the past, we know that now, right? And you understand, that's the vision of Gabriel, dressed in linen, standing on the water. And you had two angels on each side of the bank of the river. And one of the angels said to Gabriel, after Gabriel had revealed, said so much of this first vision that Daniel got, who he's revealing it to Daniel. And the angel said, well, how long is it going to be to the end of these wonders? And what if Gabriel held up both his, arms toward heaven, similar to what Solomon did at the dedication of the first temple, at the completion of it, right before they put on the first offering. He held up both his hands, arms toward heaven, and swore by Yah, it would be 4 times, time and a half. That's verse 7 in chapter 12, Daniel, right? And what did Gabriel say? Yes, and when he, talking about Yah, see, you understand? Because at the end of this time and a half, there's still going to be a period of time, as it says there, indicates there in verse 7 in chapter 12, Daniel, that it's going to take for Yah to scatter the power of the holy people. And he says that when he has done this, then all these things would have been accomplished, fulfilled. Okay, so again, you understand, it's a certain amount of time which we, it's not given any time frame for how long it would be after the seal came off the book, okay, before all of this book would be fulfilled. You follow what I'm saying? At least to the point of scattering the power of the holy people, which is really the power of Yah, who's the king, right? But I would say it's total fulfillment of the book, because now we know we're in the 126th year right now since the seal came off the book in 1896, right? So again, these are pieces that Yah has given. And so, like I just read here in chapter 4, verse 5, Psalms, a Psalm of David, offer the sacrifices of righteousness. So the righteousness is Yah's. That's his word, right? That's his laws, statutes, ordinances, commandments, judgments, and precepts. So those of us who have sought Yah out and turned to him with all our heart and soul, he's in the process, right, of breaking us down, as I've spoken about in the past, and refining us, right? We're the clay. He's the potter, right? So when we turn back to him and give ourselves to him again, right? Deuteronomy 30 verse 2, with all our heart and all our soul, then Yah starts to dismantle us, break us down, and reshape and refashion us. And, like Yah said to Jeremiah over there in chapter, was that 18 of the book of Jeremiah? He told Jeremiah to go down to the potter's house. When he asked Jeremiah, he says, he said, what do you see, right? And Jeremiah told him what he saw the potter doing, right? You see here, verse 2, chapter 18, Jeremiah, right? Jeremiah, arise and go down to the potter's house, and there will I cause thee to hear my words. And Jeremiah went down to the potter's house, and he saw the work that the potter wrought, right, on the wheel, or wheels, right? And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again, another vessel, that seemed good to the potter to make it, right? Now this is a parable, this is metaphor to what Yah is doing now, right? And it hasn't just started. This has been going on a while. Then the word of Yah came to me, saying, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter? Saith Yah, behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel, right? At what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning a dominion. They got kingdom, but it's really dominion, right? To pluck up and to pull down and to destroy it. If that nation against whom I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought to do unto them, and at what instant I shall speak concerning a nation and concerning a dominion to build and to plant it. If it do evil in my sight, that it obey not my voice, then I will repent of the good wherewith I said I would benefit them. So you understand? So when the seal came off the book, now it's the fishing period. Again, you remember chapter 6:10, right? And it, Yeshaya chapter 55. It all depends now who's hungry for Yah, he who creates. Who's hungry for the Most High, the Father, the King, the founder of living waters, the Spirit and Creator of all things? Who's hungry for him? Okay? See, now, as Yah says in 45 Yeshaya, right? I said not to the seed of Yaakov to seek me in vain, right? I said not to the seed of Yaakov to seek me in vain. So now, if you're really looking for Yah, you'll find him. Simple as that, right? At some point, you're going to be directed to Yah, right? You're going to hear about him. You're going to be directed to him, right? Like it says in Yeshaya, you'll hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. You understand what I'm saying? But at some point, you're going to hear about him. If you're looking for peace, truth, righteousness, salvation, any one of those things or a combination of, or you're looking for the true and living creator. Then it all depends on what you're going to do with it when you hear it. When you're directed or when you hear it. Okay? Like I said, I'm pretty sure I mentioned on the last session, I went to this memorial for this brother in June. And a lot of these people I hadn't seen in 30 years, 20-something years, maybe 40 years, yo, boy, you look good, right? Okay. But none of them going to ask me, what am I doing? Because, again, they know. They knew already. You understand what I'm saying? Because it didn't hit me until a while later, right? A few weeks later, that many of them who had this housewarming back in 2004, like August of 2004, I had given them a flyer at this housewarming for this sister who had just got a house back then. And I handed out flyers to many of them, okay? And that was the first flyer, not eventually the one that was sent to the monarch. That was the first flyer. I added some things between the first one and this last one, the second one, right? I've talked about that in the past, but it was still enough in there, right, to direct them to the Most High, to direct them to this book of remembrance. So they know, basically, to a degree. I ain't gonna say they truly understand, right? But they know about what I'm about, what Yahweh's about. You follow what I'm saying? What we're in pursuit, who we're in pursuit of, and why we do what we do, and why we don't do the things we used to do in the past. They know, but they're not gonna ask me, right? They're not gonna ask me. They talk about you, boy, you look good, and all of that. But they're gonna ask me, what do you do? Because they already know. You see what I'm saying? Now, here, last month, on the 12th of last month, my guy that I've been knowing since '59, him, and I met his brothers, the ones that were alive at that time, because he's had a younger brother born since then. You know what I'm saying? His younger brother was born in '60, because he's like 10 years younger than I am. Now he's 61. I think he'd be 62 this year if he's not already, because I don't know exactly his birthday, right? Because I'll be 72. But their father, who I've been knowing since back then, like, I met my man's father around 60, his father and his mother. And like I said, I've been knowing him. We went to 4th grade together. You know what I mean? From 4th grade coming up, through grammar school. We were in the same class. Then in high school, we never were in the same class except gym, right? That's the only class we had together. It was gym in high school, all through high school. But we've been knowing each other since '59. You know what I mean? Real close. His family, know his family and everything. His father just passed. His mother passed some years ago, around 2004, right? His mother passed. But his father just passed, 95 years old. And so they had, wake, funeral. So quite naturally, Yada, we went. Because a lot of the people hadn't seen Yada in a long time, you know what I mean? Because sometimes, they'll see me, but, Yada won't be with them. But they saw her too. So we went to the because it was in the funeral home. Wasn't in the church house. So we couldn't have gone if it had been in the church house. And it was on a Tuesday, because again, if it hadn't been on a Sabbath day, we couldn't have gone. But we was able to go. Saw a lot of people. Hadn't seen in years. And I mean some people I hadn't seen in a long time, since back in the early 70s. And they was like, yo, boy, I kept hearing that at the funeral home. Boy, you look good. Boy, you look good. Boy, you look good, right? But none of them asked me at that time, none of them asked me, what are you doing, right? Because it was brief, because we were getting ready to go out, get in the line, to go out to the cemetery, right? But you know, it was good seeing many of them, different ones. And then when we, you know, went to the cemetery and everything, then after they had the repast. All right, so Yada didn't go to the repast with me. I brought her back into the house because the cemetery is not far from where we live. I brought her back to the house. Then I went to the repast. Was at the youngest brother of my guys, you know, of the brother. It was 5 brothers, but the middle brother died back in 2004, around the same year, died before his mother. She died later on that year, if I'm not mistaken. But the youngest brother was at his house. He's retired now, ex-police, and they had, you know, had it at his house. They got a nice big back. So it was people at the repast that I'm pretty sure weren't even at the wake funeral, but they came to the repast. And many of these same women, again, who were at the memorial for this other brother that I talked about last session back in June, they were there. A whole, you know, bunch of us again, you know, the brothers, and then, you know, they all know these people, and then other people were there. And, you know, different ones, you look good, right? To at one point, this sister got ready to tell me that all of these women are sitting there, right? And like I said, they all know what I'm about, because I gave them flyers back in '04, right? Some of them probably seen the shows with Mark Sims on TV here. Some of them probably been on the internet, right? Because one of the sisters, you understand, she's a friend of y'all righteousness. But nevertheless, they were sitting there, and when this one sister got ready to say again, "Oh, you," and I stopped. I said, "Don't say it." And when I said that, another sister who I've been knowing since '65, '66, right? She said, "Yeah, he been hearing that all day." Okay. So now I'm looking at them, right? But none of them is going to say. None of them said to me, "YHWH, what are you doing? What do you do to where you look so good?" You follow me? You understand? None of them, because they all like my age or even older. You know, I'm 71, gonna be 72 later on this year. Some of them was already 72, 73, 74. You understand what I'm saying? But none of them's gonna ask me, and none of them did, "What are you doing, YHWH?" Because they all know. You follow what I'm saying? But you understand what I'm saying? You would think that they would want to know. You understand? They would want to do what needs to be done, because a lot of them, you know, they're you know, some of them are obese, you know, out of shape, got physical ailments, don't look that great, you know what I mean? Because different things is set upon them through the years because of their ways. That's what it's attributable to, right? Because of their ways. Some of the people weren't even there because their health is not that great. Only one man, a brother, I've been knowing him since back in like the late 60s. Known him all these years. We've never been real close or tight, but it's always, you know, he's a good brother per se, you know what I mean? We've always had a mutual understanding and a regard. I avoid the term respect, because we're not supposed to respect persons in judgment, right? But we've always had a mutual regard and honor, you could say, for one another. And he came up to me because his son died earlier this year, and I went to his son's wake. I didn't know his son. I remember when his son was first born, little baby, in the obituary, they had a picture of that, and that's how I remember, because this brother had just gone into the service. He had his uniform on. When he took a picture with his son when he was a little baby, he had been born, you know, just born. But I never knew his son. But I went to the wake just to speak to him, you know, embrace, and then I left. But I had the obit, and his son looked older than he did. So now he came up to me at the repast last month, and he said, "YHWH." Now all these other people sitting around, I mean, a lot of people back there. He came. He said, "YHWH." He said, "Man." He said, "YHWH, man." He said, "Man, you look great. You always look great." He said, "You know, what are you doing?" He the only one that asked me. He said, "What do you do, man? What do you do?" So when he pushed that button, We stood there and talked, I don't know, maybe an hour. And, you know, I gave him a card. I told him what we was doing. And I told him, I said, you know, because he's got a little pot on him now. He still looks good, though, in the face, but he got a little pot on him now that he used to didn't have. And I explained it to him. I said, you know, when you plug into Yah's menu and start, you know, eating the way that the Creator says we're supposed to eat, mankind, not just Israel, but mankind, then it retards the aging process. Okay, and for those of you out there, you know, who in the book, and you know, so far in the book where you know, you've seen, like, for instance, when Caleb says over in the book of YHWH, I'm 85 years old and I'm ready for war. Okay? You understand? I know many of you, if not all of you out there, read that, right? You're like, I'm 85 years old, I'm ready for war. All right? You know about Moshe. He lived to be 120. And what does it say? His natural forces were not abated. His eyes were not dim. He just had to, you know, transition then. He couldn't go over into the land because of his, you know, misspoke, right? Because of his anger at the people, which is talked about in Psalms too, you know, in one of the Psalms, right? And that, you know, but he was 120 at that time, right? So we know other, you know, our progenitor Abraham lived to be 175, right? More likely than not, he had the 6 sons back of Keturah when he was in his 140s. From the best I can guesstimate, right? We know Isaac lived to be 180, right? Again, with Isaac, we know he kind of got off center there. You understand? Before the blessing came down, he more than likely, as Yosha has said, he had more likely had diabetic blindness, right? He started eating the fat, okay, and got off center. Was ready to bless Esau. He knew Esau wasn't about the law, but Esau could go out there and get that savory meat that his soul loved, right? Which is in the book, right? So he kind of got off center. But now, as we've said in the past, when you look at it, you know, and after that blessing went down and the way it went down, you know, he probably said to Rebecca, why you said, you knew that wasn't Esau, you knew that was Jacob. And then, you know, like women will do, you understand? She read it and told him. You know, she got ahead of y'all. You understand what I mean? At that instance with Jacob, we've talked about that, right? And got Jacob to lie and deceive his father, which again set Jacob up for recompense later on down the line, 7 years later, which he exacerbated. We've talked about that, right? But that happens. We're human beings, right? And as Yah says in Exodus chapter 34, he is very merciful, right? And forgiving, right? But by no means clearing the guilty, okay? Because whatever you do, you're going to have to answer for to some extent. You're going to get recompense. You follow me? Whether it's good or evil, right? So, you know, Isaac got a little off center, and then he had to get himself back together. After Jacob left, and you know Rebecca told Isaac, you know, you messing up, you know, you eating fat, that's why your sight is bad, you know what I'm saying? So we know that Isaac had to get himself together. He had to approach Yah, he had to, you know, turn to Yah, acknowledge his iniquity. You remember chapter 3, right? Leviticus 26, 40, 41, and 42. And then accept of whatever punishment, but he got himself together. How do we know this? How do I know? Because we see Isaac was still there when Jacob comes back after Yah had blessed Jacob greatly with children and whatnot, right? And had, you know, lifted him up and ingratiated him with blessings, right? 20 years later, Isaac is still there. See? You understand what I'm saying? Where he presents this image to his grandchildren. You follow me? The grandchildren, the descendants of Jacob, right? Then Isaac lived another 23 years after he came back, because Isaac overlived Abraham to 180, which is basically unheard of today, right? You don't hear anybody living to be 180, because Yah set the ceiling of 120 back there in Genesis, right? Chapter 6, right? 120 is like the ceiling. Now we do see, as time, as you keep reading through the book from that point on, lifespans start to come down. Now later on, way later on, second Chronicles over there, we see YHWH, right? Well, chapter 23, we see YHWH live to be the priest, the high priest, the one that concealed David's seed, the last one left that Athaliah didn't have killed, right? What was that? What was his name? Jehoram? I think it was Jehoram. Or Joash. He concealed it, right? And kept it. And YHWH lived to be 130. See what I'm saying? So now, again, the thanksgiving of righteousness, we see that in that chapter 4 of Psalms. That's one of the thanksgivings, right? Again, when we adhere to Yah's righteousness, when we submit to his will, you understand, to his laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts, his righteousness, right? And we exalt and magnify his righteousness, his laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts, his menu, the things to eat, not to eat, the things to do and not to do, right? His righteousness, that's an offering, that's a sacrifice, right? Again, when we offer up the calves of our lips, 14:2 Hosea, right? That's an offering. That's a sacrifice, right? We see it again in the 57th chapter of Yeshaya, right? When Yah says he dwells with the contrite spirit, the humble spirit and the contrite heart, right? Again, and that's what we see over here in chapter 51 Psalms. David wrote about that, right? And I'll just pick this up at verse 16 in chapter 51 Psalms. And David wrote, "For thou desirest not sacrifice." He talking about Yah. Verse 15, "O Yah, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall show forth thy praise," right? Verse 16, "For thou desirest not sacrifice, else I'd give it," right? "Thou delightest not in burnt offering. The sacrifices of Yah are a broken spirit," right? Humble spirit, "a broken and contrite heart," right? "Oh Yah, thou delightest not," "a broken and contrite heart, oh Yah, thou will not despise." See, because again, for instance, those of you who read the book of Nehemiah, right? Okay, so when Nehemiah, one of the captives, had come up from Jerusalem, from Israel, up into Persia, in the first chapter of Nehemiah, and told him all of the hardships that the people were under, the ones that were still of Israel, still there, of Yehudah, Benjamin, why, and that remnant of the 6.5 tribes, you understand, that became known as Samaria, Israel, Palestinians, they called today, the hardship that they were under, right? And when Nehemiah heard that, he was sad, right? Broken hearted. And when Artaxerxes came in, because he was, Artaxerxes the great king's cupbearer. And when Artaxerxes heard this, right? Saul, Nehemiah, he said, because they was tight. They had to develop the friendship. And he said, "What's the matter? What's the matter? Why you look so sad?" And then, Nehemiah said a quick prayer. And then to Yah, and then what did he say? "Why shouldn't I be sad, broken hearted?" You understand? Because what's going on with my people who are in the land of Israel, who are up and around Jerusalem? What's going on with them? They're under duress. The temple burnt down. Matter of fact, take that back. The second temple was up then, right? They had completed that in 516. Because now this is down in like 445, right? You understand? But the temple there, but the wall is broken down. The street is is in disrepair, right? They're under hard duress and oppression, you understand what I mean? Probably high taxes and this and that. And so what did Artaxerxes say to him? He said, well, what's your petition? In other words, what do you want me to do? So Nehemiah told him, said, let me go back and repair the street, build the wall, right? And set things in proper order and give them some relief, right? And what did Artaxerxes do? He made him governor over the land of Israel, over Jerusalem. He made Nehemiah to give him governor, right? And sent some soldiers with him to make sure his, dictates, his declarations, his command would be carried out, right? But what did he say to his friend Nehemiah, who was his cupbearer? He's like, but you're coming back, ain't you? And so what did Nehemiah say? He said he set him a time. We see that time was 12 years, right? Because he came back, or came to Jerusalem in 445 BC. He had to be back in Persia in the, as it says, the 32nd year of Artaxerxes. We know Artaxerxes came on the throne in 465. So when you subtract 32nd year, 32 years from 465, right, you get 433. So that's 12 years from when he came to Jerusalem. Now 12 years later, he went back, right, 433. And he stayed there until 424, Artaxerxes' death. See, but during that time, that's when, as I've said in the past, Nehemiah got the book of Daniel. He read it. He got the book of Hadassah, Esther. Read that. He brought both those books back with him when he comes back. Now, quite naturally, both of the books are significant. The book of Daniel is very significant, okay, because it, shows what was going to happen. You understand? Coming in the future. The book of Hadassah, Esther, is basically historical data showing Yah's caring love for Israel and his salvation that he reaped for Israel. Okay? The salvation that he reaped for Israel to keep the Amalekite Edomites led by Haman, who was the prime minister of Xerxes Ahasuerus back there, 473 BCE, from wiping out the seed of Israel. Okay? So that's significant in that, showing, how Yah is not going to allow the seed of Israel to be wiped out, the nation to be wiped out. Okay? See, so again, you understand, we see, right, in these different situations, the caring for Yah and how he maintains his promise that he promised to Israel, right? That he's going to sustain us. He's not going to allow us to be destroyed. And he's given us a chance when he took the seal off the book in 1896, like it was said in Daniel chapter 12, the first vision that Daniel got, right? This book would be sealed to the time of the end of these 4 dominions of man. Okay? I mean, you got some people who think, or they look at it, they look at it as 5 dominions of man, but I don't agree with that. I still just see 4. Okay? Because again, we're in the last days of the diversified dominion. Okay? And it's diversified. And this was the dominion that the Edomites were to rise to the dominion of the earth. Okay? Because we still have the same idols, right, that came about in this 4th dominion. Basically, at its inception, pretty much. You understand? Into its inception, we still got these same idols around today. Now, called by what they were called by when they were created. Even though they're like extensions of old idolatries. Baal, Baal. This Christianity is an extension of that. But when it first reared its head, as it was prophesied in Daniel chapter 11, right? Verse 38, 39. You understand? This strange idol that they were caused to rule over many. Okay, and as I said in the past, you know, Christianity basically reared its head in 270 CE AD, Catholicism. Then it was made legal in 311 under Constantine, right? Then in 325 CE AD, they had the first Nicene Council getting the game together. You understand what I'm saying? Then in 380 CE AD, it became the state, you know, the religion, main religion of the empire under Theodosius, Christianity. Well, we still got Christianity today. Follow what I'm saying? Islam came on the scene in 622 CE AD, and we still got Islam today. The two main religions in the earth. Then you got Judaism, which spun out from Hasidism, but that started in the, you understand, time of the third dominion of man, which was the Greek dominion. You understand? Hasidism promoted 300 BCE, and then it, you know, over a period of time, it became known as Judaism. All right, but it came about in the third dominion of man. See what I'm saying? So we basically, you know, we got these basically same religions that were created in this fourth dominion, still exist today. You follow what I'm saying? So I just look at it, this is the fourth dominion again. You know, this is the dominion that Esau was to rise to the dominion of the earth. And like I said in the past, I look at the Edomites, you know, these Illuminists, right, descendants out of Amalek, these international bankers, Amalekites, right? Numbers chapter 24. They've got the dominion today, but it's a diversified dominion. Because you got about 4 families, maybe 1 or 2 more, but definitely about 4 families. It's said in the past, the Oppenheimers, the Warburgs, the Ships, the Rothschild, right? Again, and we see they still causing confusion, right? That's how they bring these nations into conflict, weaken them, get them in their debt, they get more control, right? And they dictate who wins a conflict, who loses, pull the financial rug out from up under whatever nation or nations to bring about their demise in the sense of their, you know, losing the conflict. And then, but all the nations involved are in their debt. You see what I'm saying? And that's how these Illuminists have risen to the dominion of the world, getting these nations in their debt, you know, causing conflict, instigating conflict. See what I'm saying? And they're still doing that to this day, right? But nevertheless, right, we see these sacrifices that we offer when we hear, you know, the turmoil that our brothers and sisters are in, the Demona movement, you know, in Demona, in Mizpeh, wherever they are there in the land, the duress that they're under, the confusion that they're under. You understand how some of them become, you know, get inducted into the army of the Edomites and being sent against their brothers. You follow what I'm saying? The so-called Palestinians. You understand that? That's confusion, right? The so-called Palestinians worshiping idols and images, just like the Demona group. They still basically worshiping Ben-Ami, their idol. That's why they don't understand, right? They're turned back. 42:17 Yeshaya. The so-called Palestinians, they're into, you understand, like Shireen Abu Akleh. She was a Christian. Edomite shot her in the back of the head, blew her face off. She's a Christian. I mean, the so-called Palestinians who are really Israelites get killed over in the land every day. They get pummeled here. Like this 17-year-old one just got beat down in the suburb right here, not far from where we live. You understand? Oak Lawn here in Illinois got beat down here the other week. Just got out the hospital. Now, you know, the police, Oak Lawn police got him. They got videos. They're probably viral. You understand? You can probably bring it up if you want to see it. And they just, 3 of them just beat him down on the street, right? They found the gun he had in his knapsack backpack later after the fact. They didn't know he had no gun. He broke out and ran from him when he got stopped in a traffic stop. And he wasn't even driving the vehicle from what I understand. But he took off running. And you can see that. We just saw that yesterday on the internet. You understand what I'm saying? And they caught him and then just beat him. Unmercifully beat him. You understand what I mean? Wasn't no call for that. So you had a protest here about that by Palestinians. You understand what I'm saying? But that goes on because they Israel. Just like it has, same thing happens to us. You know, and when I say us, other Israelites of a different hue, a different pigmentation. You follow what I'm saying? That's more divisiveness, right? Because we all Israelites, the so-called Palestinians, the so-called African-American, black, Negro, colored man. You understand what I mean? For the most Israelites. You see what I'm saying? Just like you just saw here that it went viral in Italy. They're saying this person of color, he was 39 years old, sold things on the street in Italy, and said something to this Italian guy who was 32, who was walking with his girlfriend or whatever. Didn't say it was his wife. And the African brother, I forget just what nation he's from. I got it in the article. I'll get to it later. You understand what I mean? Walking, and he said something, like was panhandling, and then supposedly this is what I guess the guy said, maybe to try to ameliorate what he actually did to this, because he killed him. And the brother was panhandling, and he just jumped. You can see it. I mean, he was on him, beating the brother, and the brother was, he had a bad leg, the brother, because he got hit by a car on his bike. You understand? A motor vehicle on his bike here last year. Sound like an Israelite, though. Curse on him, right? And so he was on the cane, and this Italian just jumped on him and started beating him and killed him. Beat him to death. Okay? Beat him to death. We saw that on the internet yesterday. You follow me? So more than likely, he was an Israelite under the curse. Because that's what happens to Israel. Under the curse. You see what I'm saying? Like Yah says in the curse, in Deuteronomy. At daytime, you're going to wish it was night. At nighttime, you're going to wish it was day. Because of all the things that befall you. Because I'm putting this curse on you. Why? Because you refuse to hear, you refuse to obey my righteousness. See? So again, when we look at this, you understand, offerings of sacrifice, when we partake of Yah's righteousness, when we start to embrace his righteousness, his laws, statutes, orders, judgments, commandments, and precepts with all our heart and all our soul, and start to purge out of us the ways of the heathen, this is an offering of sacrifice. See, when we hear what goes on in the land of Israel, in Jerusalem, with our brothers and sisters, like I said, of the Demona movement, of the so-called Palestinians, when we hear how they get killed, when we hear how they oppressed, when we hear our brothers and sisters join in the army against their brothers, the Edomite army against their brothers, that's depressing. That's a breaking of the heart. You follow me? You follow me? A contrite broken, that creates a contrite broken heart, if you understand. And these are all offerings. These are sacrifices to Yah. See, because it's nothing that happens. It's nothing that you think that Yah does not know. That's how powerful Yah is. Okay? See, when we praise Yah, you understand? That's an offering of sacrifice. When we praise Yah by his holy name, when we lift up his holy name. See? But when you're dealing with obstinate, prideful, stiff-necked people, which basically Israel is, to this day, the majority, right, who refuse to hear, who will sit and tell me, 2 different times in like I said, in a month and a half, matter of fact, in about a month, a little better than a month, in a 5-6 week period, tell me how good I look, but won't say to me, what are you doing, YHWH? And then all of you out there know that usually comes. If a person say, man, woo, I ain't seen you in a long time, you look good, you look great. What are you doing? That's generally what the next day is. What are you doing? See? But so many, only one person, like I said, at this repast on the 12th of last month, asked me, YHWH, what are you doing, man? Man, because you always look great. What are you doing? He said, what do you do? And we talked about an hour. I gave him a card, directed it. He said, man, I'm going to check this out. I said, yeah. I said, you understand, want to talk about, feel free to call. But again, We like the same age. I know I didn't ask, but I know he got to be at least 71, 72 as well. All right. And you know, it's a lot when you get up in age like that. It can be done, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. Right? Like it says over there, you know, I mentioned in past Proverbs chapter 8, was that verse 14, verse 17, better to come to Yah early. Because again, you have less inclusions, you have less defects in you. Possibly, you know, when you come to Yah early. Once you've gotten older and acquired these tastes for these things that are out of harmony with Yah. Like David said, he had withheld himself from his iniquities to stay in harmony with Yah. Because it was things he had a taste for, but he knew they weren't in harmony with Yah. So he stiff-armed them, kept them away from him. You follow me? Like when you go to 1 Samuel chapter 18, and you get that down in the chapter, because as I said in the past, you know, his men at the top of chapter 18 in the army, because you know David, after he killed Goliath, he been made captain over the army by Saul, right? And so now the men of the army is watching him. You understand? Because they like, man, this young brother, because you know David wasn't probably no more, maybe about 17, 18 years old. You understand what I mean? He done knocked off Goliath when all of them were afraid of Goliath. Why? Because they weren't in harmony with Yah. They had no faith. So by them being disconnected from Yah, Yah is our strength. And that the definition of Yisrael, he who has power with the strong. Well, if you're not in harmony with the strong, he ain't your power. So you have no strength, right? But David was all about Yah, right? So when he killed Goliath and was made captain of the host, now the army, these are guys older than him. You understand what I'm saying? They all adults. 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe some 60s. You know, they like, let's check him out. And so they watched him, and what did they say? What does it say? Yes, and they all saw how David dealt wisely, which means he was in harmony with Yah's law, his righteousness. And then, and again, that's uplifting Yah. And that's like an offering, a sacrifice to Yah, because he magnified Yah's righteousness. See? And they all taking note of that. So when you get further down in chapter 18, what does it say? Saul, he's observed that. Now Saul has developed an envy, a jealousy, right, towards David. He started eyeing him. He's like, uh-oh, you know. See? Because Saul thinks he king. But he was afraid to go out there and face Goliath because he didn't have any faith in Yah. He had disconnected himself from Yah, right? So now Saul tried to get David to do something that was outside of Yah's righteousness. And David didn't do it. And David probably told him, no, we can't do that. That's not in harmony with Yah. And when Saul saw that, what does it say? When he saw that David dealt very wisely, he really feared him because he saw that David's not going to follow him to do something that's outside the law. David wasn't respecting persons in judgment, just like we're not supposed to respect persons in judgment. Right? See? So again, you follow me? These are offerings. So when people talk about, well, you can't make no offerings, there ain't no priesthood, there ain't no temple, it's no altar. You understand? How can you make a sacrifice to Yah? Again, by uplifting and magnifying Yah's name, by uplifting and magnifying Yah's way, his laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts, by uplifting Yah's menu, the differentiation between clean and unclean in the eyes of Yah. Right? When we're brokenhearted because Yah is not established in Jerusalem. When we brokenhearted, when we see, as I was at this repast, when all these sisters are sitting there, and it was some males too, because I know it was plenty saw me talking to this brother for about that hour, who's asking me, and I know they peeped it. You follow me? Because they all around. See? but none of them wanted to hear about Yah. And I could see it. I could see it in their eyes. You know what I mean? When I stopped the sister from saying, you look, I said, don't say it. Don't say it. And another sister, like I said, that I've been knowing since like 65, 66, she said, yeah, he been hearing that all day. Okay, he don't want to hear that no more. Right, because the deal is, if you really say how good I look, you should want to know what I'm doing. But they all do what I'm doing. But they ain't gonna push no button. And as I told y'all, some of them probably even heard me say when they go on the internet and heard some of them things, if they don't push the right button, they ain't gonna hear the tune. So they wouldn't ask. Now they waiting to see if I'm gonna just start saying something, and I didn't. But I was brokenhearted about it. You know, it hurts you to your heart to see people so stiff-necked, so stubborn, so faithless, so blind. Because like I said to the brother the other day when he brought about this, how people come about this sacrifice, and I said, because when he said it, then I said, now that's why, you know, y'all brought through YHWH to me about this, you know, these offerings of sacrifice that generally are not talked about. We all done read it, I didn't read it, but it, like I said to you, said it when they brought it to me, and specifically YHWH one time before YHWH got on the phone, and I said, yeah, we've been reading this how long? I said, it just jumped out at you, didn't you? Just not, you understand what I mean? Because it happens like that. You read stuff over and over, might have read this 1,000 times, but it's not until the 1,001st time, the 1,001, you understand, when it really hits you. And you're like, oh man, these are sacrifices right here. Been doing them all the time. Didn't really understand these were sacrifices. Read it, but it didn't really hit to now. And that's Yeshaya 28, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Sometimes you get snared in anything, you know, you think of things one way, and then when Yah reveals to you the truth, then you have to what? Jeremiah chapter 3, Leviticus 26, 40, 41, and 42. You have to acknowledge. Humility is before honor. Humbleness. Because this ain't about us, this is about Yah. See, but you see people, they don't want to hear about Yah. And even though they looking bad, they on canes and barely can walk. And, you understand what I mean? Got all kind of problems. You understand? Knee replacements, back operations, you know, and then had, you understand, strokes. You follow what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know, things breaking in their head and they had to go get operated on. I mean, all kind of stuff. But they ain't gonna ask you, cause they didn't heard it already. But they don't want. They turned it back and not the face. That's how prideful. That's how arrogant. That's how, you understand what I mean? Selfish that they are. So, you know, just stiff-necked and stubborn and recalcitrant. Isn't that what y'all said Israel is? These not my words, these Yah's words. Children in whom have no faith. You know, like a brother said to me the other night, he's like, yeah, he said, you know, he had told me this once before, his nephew, right? He a sheriff deputy. You dig, down south there. You understand? And he had told me this a few years ago, he got a $300,000 house. He brags about it. And I told him, I said, yeah, I said, we gonna see how much he bragging when this, you know, the more this, you understand, impoverishment sets in, the more this collapse of the dollar sets in. Like I said here the other year, you know, a little over a year ago, 2021, and y'all played it the other week. It might have been the one we got banned though, not because I said that, because I was talking about the other stuff, you know, about, you know, what they doing, you understand, you know, sticking people with the sword. You know what I'm saying? I can't say it because you called this morning to tell us we was, you know, they done struggled. So we was three of us on the phone, and so y'all was like, you just gonna have to stop. You have to mention. I said, yeah, well, you know, we done talked about it. I have to go around it. I said the people who listening, they gonna know what I'm talking about. We done talked about it enough. I don't have to actually mention it. You understand? But that's the intimidation factor. that these Edomites. And so this brother, you understand, tell me about his nephew with the $300,000 house who was shared his debit. He said, yeah, they was talking the other day. He told me, he said his nephew told him, yeah, I had to take the jab. You know, I had to get the sword stuck in me. You know what I mean? Because if I don't, they gonna take my job from me. You follow me? You see? So I said, yeah, but he didn't have to. That's the intimidation. He just submitted and did. Because he said, well, you know, I got bills to pay. You know, like another brother here, you know, that lives outside the city. I ain't never met him. We didn't talk. He's been calling for about, you know, on and off about 12 years. And I ain't heard from him. Man, I ain't heard from him now. It's getting on close around a year. Right? Because, you understand what I'm saying? He went on and submitted. Because he said he had to have a job. He had bills to pay. You know, he got to take care of his children. They come up with all kinds of excuses. But you didn't have to do that. That's what you submitted to. And you don't know what has actually been done to you. You know, when they stick you with that sword, right? You don't know what is in you, right? You follow what I'm saying? You don't know. But to hold on to what they tell you, you know, if you want to keep this, you got to submit to this. Like I said to them this morning, you know, again, if Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, you understand what I'm saying? If they hadn't had the faith in Yah that they had, right? When Nebuchadnezzar told them, say, y'all either gonna bow down to this image of me, or I'm gonna have you thrown into this fire. And what did they say? Hey, we're not hesitant in answering you in this. If that's what you think you got to do, you better get to it, because we're not bowing down to any idol. We serve Yah righteousness, the King. We serve Yah of hosts, He who creates. Now, and if that's what He got in store for us, then that's just what's gonna happen. And he got highly upset, had the fire heated up 7 times hotter, the furnace, right? And the men that bound them up and took them up to throw them in, they burned up. The men that took them up, threw them in, they burned up, perished. Right? They perished. But nothing happened. Y'all protected Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Right? He sent his angel to protect them. And when the fire died down, right? Because they can see four men like inside the flame, you know, inside the furnace, right? But when the fire died down and the furnace cooled off, Nebuchadnezzar went up to the furnace door and said, Hananiah, Mishael, well, you know, he said Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the names he had given them, right? You understand? Yeah. And they came out. Their hair was not singed. Their clothes weren't singed. Wasn't no smell of smoke on them at all, right? Because Yah delivered them. Because they what? They trusted in it. They had faith in it. You see? Total unequivocal faith. And that's what we've got to have today. All who's going back with Yah, that's how you've got to be. Total committed and submitted to Yah with all your heart and all your soul, in harmony with His righteousness. Laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commands, and precepts. That's the only way you're going back with Yah. That's the only way you're going to be able to be part of His arm. And if other people out here, yes, they want to go back with Yah, you want to be part of the arm, that's the only way you're going to go back with Yah. If you acceptable in His sight, you're not a seed of incest, right? And you totally committed and submissive to His laws, statutes, ordinances, judgments, commandments, and precepts. That's all who's going to be able to stay in the land of Israel. Stay in Jerusalem, right? Again, Yeshaya 20:16, right? Because if you're not totally committed and submitted to Yah with all your heart and soul, He's going to remove you out of the land and eventually off the face of this earth. That's what's going on as we are systematically watching the destruction of this fourth dominion of man that the 3 previous dominions rest upon. That's what we watching. Okay? You understand? The revealment of Judaism, Hasidism that spun into Judaism, religion. The revealment of Christianity, religion, you understand? Mythologies, right? The destruction of and the destruction, of Islam, right? Religion, right? And all the rest of these religions going out. The ones that came in the second dominion, right? Zoroastrianism. The one that came in the first dominion, Buddhism, right? And they was already in the Baal back there too, Baal, right? Again, which Christianity is the extension of Baal, the supposed son of the strong, right? And Yah told us in Exodus chapter 4, who is his firstborn of the nations? That's Yisrael. Right? Yah's inheritance. You understand what I'm saying? Because Mezarim is Yah's people, right? The Assyrian, the work of his hand. But Israel is Yah's inheritance. Israel was created to minister to Yah as a nation. To function as a nation ministering to Yah. That Yah reveals his mind through. Right? Deuteronomy 18. Right? Amos 3, verse 2. Yah reveals his mind through Israel. So, there are offerings to Yah, other than animal sacrifices, other than flour, other than money, other than silver and gold, or brass or copper, platinum, jewels, diamonds, emeralds, sapphires, rubies. All these can be offerings to Yah. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Incense. Right? All these are offerings to Yah. Quite naturally, of the flock, of the herd, of the fowl. Right? See? Cloth, you know what I'm saying? See the people offer that, you know what I'm saying? So I tell you, these things, Yah just keeps revealing, peeling the onion, peeling the onion, peeling the onion. And it just breaks my heart, you know what I mean? To see brothers and sisters who, you want the best for brothers and sisters, but they just, so many are just so, and these ones I'm talking about at the repast last month, I mean, most of them got college degrees. So they're intelligent. You know what I'm saying? They can learn, right? They just refuse to hear. So maybe again in the very near future, those who are still here, when they actually see the movement of the Most High submitted to by the elite of the earth, when they come in, these kings and queens, these princes come and get the movement of the Most High, totally submitted to it. 49 Yeshua, right? 60 Yeshua, right? To bring it to Yah. Daniel 7 verse 13. In the sight of everybody on the earth. Yeshua chapter 52. The whole world watching. Possibly then it'll hit some of them and they'll like, hey, it ain't too late, because if you breathe then it's not too late. You understand? You turn to Yah, humble yourself and pray. Who's to say that Yah won't hear you and won't leave a blessing, for you, for a blessing upon you. When you acknowledge him, when you humble yourself. But nothing can happen if people stay stiff-necked and stubborn and recalcitrant and turn the back and not the face. You know? Because Yah has told us our days shall be prolonged, multiplied. Right? He tells us in that Yeshaya 6, in Yeshaya chapter 65, our days are going to be like the days of a tree. See? He also tells us he's going to cleanse our blood that is not being cleansed. Again, quite naturally, this begins with this, you know, the Jerusalem movement, the arm of Yah that he brings back, and the ones of us that remain in the land. You follow what I'm saying? After we get that and start to cleanse Jerusalem of all idolatry, so Yah's this third and last temple can be built, and them sacrifices put on, that Yah can come into the house and dwell on earth in the midst of the children of Israel forever, ruling over this whole earth and the universe, right? Again, you understand, in the you know, it'll come full circle back to the first dominion that it was on earth, the everlasting dominion. Again, Micah chapter 4, right? Because again, the kingdom is Yah's and always has been. He lifts up and brings down whoever he wants to give dominion to on earth. Because that's what we're watching now, you know, the destruction, right, of this fourth and last dominion of man, of which the diversified illuminated Edomites, you know, have the dominion today and have had now for a little over 100 years. But it's still diversified because it's more than one. Like I said, it's about 4 or 5 families. You understand? Maybe 6. I don't know. I know it's, from what I can see, it's at least 4. And now they're starting to fragment. Huh? Because we can see with this Ukraine thing, right? Because again, now it could be, again, that they're in harmony with this action of the Ukraine going against Russia and bringing Russia to bring these other nations into impoverishment, right? And into a more control. But we know Yah operates, this is the law of life, recompense. Whether it's good or evil, you're going to get back what you put out. We know the illuminated Edomites have used diversity coming up through this fourth dominion of man and started in the latter part of the third dominion of man when they got rid of Alexander. You follow me? And then the Diadochi, you understand, came about those 7, 8 generals, and then they plotted, put them into conflict, right? We can see that when you read about the Diadochi. And out of that came 4 generals that split up Alexander's dominion into 4 parts, and 2 of the generals would be stronger than the other 2. And the 2 stronger ones were the Ptolemies first, followed by the Seleucids, right? Because basically the other 2, they were weaker. That, you know, don't even deal with them. You just deal with the 2 who was the stronger. The Ptolemies in Egypt, right, out of Ptolemy Soda, and the Seleucids in Cilicia out of Antiochus Seleucus. But the Edomites, the illuminated Edomites, they've been, you understand, precipitating divisiveness from that point on to this day. So now they got to get that back. Recompense. Right? So it stands to reason now you got some of them, you understand, in a divisive state against one another. You know, you might just have 1 against 3 or 4. You understand? You might have 1 or 2 against 3 or 4. You understand? Because they got to get recompense. And that's what's leading to the nuclear conflagration. The day that's going to burn like an oven. Malachi chapter 4. So now is the time for each and every person to stop and consider. Because this is from Yah. Because he's moving the sword against all mankind. You understand what I'm saying? Bringing these nations into impoverishment. And systematically removing the iniquitous and the wicked from the face of the earth. But again, you Yah is going to give the people as a whole a chance to choose between him and anything else. He's going to make it plain. That's what we see in YHWH chapter 61, right? When he said he's going to cause righteousness and praise to spring forth before all the nations. That's why in chapter 52, YHWH, what does Yah say, right? The whole world is going to see when he returns to Jerusalem, when he brings again Zion. That's why in the 49th chapter, YHWH, you know, at one point, like I said, when we thought we were to leave out, when I thought we were going to leave out, right? And we didn't. What does it say? You know, Jerusalem was going to say, man, y'all done forgot about us. But what did y'all say? I ain't forgot about you. Y'all, thy walls are continually before me. They're engraved upon the palms of my hand. I haven't forgot about you. But again, Ezekiel 16, 59 through 63. But I'm not allowing anybody to come back with me, part of my arm, that's not totally committed and submitted to me with all their heart and all their soul. Deuteronomy 30 verse 2. Because like it says in Ezekiel 16, 59 through 63, I'm going to deal with the Jerusalem movement in a way because of how your forefathers dealt deceitfully with me and went into idolatry, right? And uplifted and magnifying idols and images. Like I said, when you go to that Ezekiel chapter 11 verse 15, what does it say? Jerusalem said to all the people, get far away from Yah, for this land's been given into our hand as a possession. In other words, we don't need Yah no more. That's what Jerusalem did. Broke the agreement, the covenant that Yah had entered in with the descendants of Jerusalem. The seed of David and his seed, right? And Zadok and his seed, right? The two anointed that stand on each side of Yah. Zechariah chapter 4, right? And the Levites that were given to Yah by the children of Israel for Yah killing the firstborn man, woman, beast of Egypt when he brought Israel out of Egypt. Back then, 1440 BCE. And then Yah gave the whole tribe of Levi to the priesthood as a gift of service to aid and abet them in ministering to Yah, right? That's what he gave Moshe when he called Moshe up into the mountain for the 40 days and 40 nights to give him all that, because they already had the law. Moshe already had the law. See? Now Yah possibly, you know, imprinted upon Moshe, you know, teach the people the law, give them that law. But he gave him the law, the tabernacle, the priesthood, the Levites, the do's and don'ts of all of that. And they quickly turned aside, right? Got Aharon, who wasn't as strong in Yah and faith in Yah as Moshe was, broke him that, you know, he broke down and made the calf. Made Yah's semblance be that of a beast. Okay? Democracy Now! Shows for July. Now, I'm pretty sure I told you last month about the Democracy Now! Shows on the 5th and the 6th of July, right? One talking about that Jaden Walker, they shot all up 40-something times in Ohio, and then about the racism in Boston, you know, and what happened with that Charles Morrell. I know I told you about those two, because I remember talking about Charles Morrell and that Jalen Walker. So the other shows for July 2022, July the 12th. Make sure you watch that. You'll hear this Joe Laria. Listen to what he's talking about. Okay, July the 13th. Listen to the mistake, the gaffe that John Bolton made when he talked about how, you understand, America been cooing nations for a long time and how difficult it is. All right, he let that out the bag. You know, we've been cooing nations, but listen to that. All right, you know how they've been creating coup d'etats, America, through the years. Right, July the 14th. Okay, you understand? Make sure you watch that about the Edomites stealing the land of Israel, right? And about the embassy, they want to you understand, set up and make sure you watch that July the 14th. What the Edomites doing in the land, stealing, right? Again, the robbers of our people, right? July the 18th, they talking about climate and the bribes to Congress, how these congressmen are being bribed all the time. They talk about that. July the 19th, the Edomites APAC, how they spend big money bribing these congressmen, okay? You understand? And trying to unseat any of these congressmen and or senators that have any kind of empathy or broken heart or contrite spirit for what's going on with the Palestinians, or you understand, or talking against the Edomites any kind of way. These different Edomite organizations like AIPAC spend big money trying to get these, you understand, congressmen and or senators out of office. Now, this Tellez, the Palestinian sister in Michigan, she just won her primary. Okay, because the Edomites was spending big money trying to get her out of there, but they didn't make it because she won her primary. But it's still yet to be seen what's going to happen in the general election. Okay, Democracy Now! On the 21st of July, they're talking about the climate collapse, and again, only Yah can straighten this climate situation out, because he's the only one who can open the windows to the dome. Which again, he's done told us the next time he's gonna open the windows to the dome, like he did over there in Genesis when he, flooded the earth, right? And let the firmament in outside the dome. He opened the windows. Well, and then he shut them, right? Well, he's gonna open the windows again, and he talks about that. When the conflagration comes, the fire, right? The fire next time, right? YHWH chapter 24. That's the next time he gonna open the windows. That's the only way that this, you understand, climate and everything gonna get healed. The earth and everything's gonna get healed from the pollution and the toxicity. It's not going to be healed any other kind of way. Now the illuminated Edomite knows this. That's why they don't really listen to Greta Thunberg and these climate activists and whatnot. They don't, because they know that only Yah can straighten this out. You follow me? YHWH chapter July 26th, Democracy Now! You understand, the so-called apology from the Pope from all of this molestation and murder and genocide and pedophilia that the Catholic Church has put upon these so-called Indians, Native Americans through the last few centuries, right? And the Pope was probably part of that. You know what I mean? Ain't no doubt he was part of it. He's probably doing some molestation himself. Okay? It's so hypocritical, right? Democracy Now! On the 27th of July. Okay? Talking about the economic collapse. Okay? And Professor Richard Wolff is on there running it down. So make sure you watch that. And then Democracy Now! The 29th, which was last Friday, okay, and it's talking about again the Edomites and AIPAC and how they, you understand, how the Edomites spin against each other. Okay, that's how crazy they are now. But watch that one on the 29th of July, and then the 1st of August, Monday, right? Democracy Now! They had Bernadine Dorn and Bill Ayers on there with their son, and putting the spin on back there. You understand, when they was bombing, you understand, government installations and buildings and whatnot, robbing armored trucks and banks and whatnot. You understand? They trying to put the spin on their part, things that they was doing. And if you watch it, you'll see they do a little clip with Fred Hampton to try to say that they was hooked up with the Black Panthers. You follow what I'm saying? But they played this little clip and they cut it. See, I've seen that whole clip about Fred Hampton and what he actually said. See, he was saying that they, you understand, they were with any revolutionary group, you follow me, what I'm saying, that was standing up against the government. But they didn't play it all. They just played that to try to show how they was, all them was hooked up. But see, if they played the whole clip, you're going to hear Fred Hampton say, but we're not a part of any kind of bombing, any kind of, military rising up against the government. He said, "Cause that's stupid. That don't make any sense if you listen to the whole clip." So you understand, Fred Hampton, they wasn't for no bombing, no government buildings. You understand, anything like that. Like I said in the past, I got a book here. I can't remember which one it was. Been so long since I read it. But they say it could have been non-dare call it conspiracy by that boy Gary Allen. Could have been that. All right, but it is one of these books I got here, and the writer says, you understand, that back there when all this you know, and even today, you understand, you know who is the government, who is the provocateur, you know who's the agent that's been inseminated into a movement. When you get somebody that starts talking about, well, let's bomb something, let's blow something up, or let's go out here and kill somebody, you know that's the agent that's been inseminated into your movement to you know, to you understand, get your movement to where, you understand, the government can come and attack. You follow me? You follow me? Or the one that's got an endless line of money. You understand what I mean? There's an agent, because just like in this book I'm reading by Susan Williams, you know, Susan Williams, White Malice. I'm reading, you understand, back there with Lumumba, you understand, and France Fanon and these people, you know what I mean, and Kasavubu and Mabudu, you understand, who ended up getting rid of Lumumba, who became, you understand, the president of the Congo. He was a CIA agent. That's without question from the beginning. And you got some others back there who was around all of that. You understand, who was around Kwame Nkrumah and like I say, who was around France Fanon and Patrice Lumumba and these people who were backed by the CIA. Now some didn't know that they was backed by the CIA, and some did. And this is all being revealed in this White Malice, you follow me, by Susan Williams. Okay? So newspaper articles coming.